Hello, my name is Gareth Tempest. I am a personal trainer and fitness instructor, and today is my second video in our series that is entitled An Exploration of Movement. And today's video we are going to discuss the deadlift.
What is a deadlift? A deadlift is a compound or multi-joint movement and primarily involves the flexing or bending and extending of the hips, knees and ankle joints. Now, if you watch my video on squat technique, then you might be getting a little bit of deja vu. Although both squats and deadlifts are compound movements that target the same joints, they do focus and work on a different set of muscles. In the squat, we tend to get far better activation or work from the muscles at the front of the legs, the quads, whereas the deadlift targets the muscles of the posterior or back of the body, namely your hamstrings and glutes. Thanks once again to the 3D Anatomy app for supplying us with our wonderful model, Charlemagne. The other key difference between the squat and the deadlift are the joint movement timings. In the squat, we're looking to bend at the knee and hips simultaneously, whereas with the deadlift, we're breaking up the timing of the movement of the joints. What the hell does that mean? Well, I shall show you.
Now, there are loads of different ways you can teach deadlifts. This is just the way that I like to do it and the way that I found that my clients respond best to learning deadlifts. I like to break the deadlift down into 5 different stages. So first of all, you've got your setup, then you have got your hip bend or your hip flexion, then you've got your knee bend, then you've got your knee extension, and finally your hip extension at the top. So let's break those down a little bit more.
So firstly, we have our setup. Stand with your feet shoulder width apart, sending weight through your heels. Brace the core, retract the shoulder blades, relax the neck. Place your hands onto the front of your legs, palms to your thighs. Your hands are going to track the front of your legs all the way down and all the way back up your legs during this movement. We then move on to our hip bend stage. Once we've completed our setup, we move into stage 2, which is our hip bend. As you bend at the hips, your hands should be tracking down your legs. In this phase of the movement, we want very little knee bend. Now, it's essential we keep a neutral spine throughout this phase of the movement and throughout the entirety of our deadlift. What this means is that we're not overly rounding the spine, merely holding and maintaining its natural curvature. When your hands reach your knees, this phase of the movement ends. We then enter stage 3, which is our knee bend. Once the hands arrive at the knees, we stop bending at the hip and begin flexing, or bending, exclusively at the knees, lowering ourselves towards the floor. It is essential that we keep our chests upright and shoulders back and down with the weight travelling through the heels. This is where we will reach the bottom of our movement. Once we've reached the bottom of our movement, we enter stage 4, which is knee extension. Here we send the weight through the heels and extend at the knees, keeping the hips still. So the only movement that is occurring is at the knee joint. We extend at the knees until our hands once again pass onto our kneecaps. Once our hands are at knee height, we enter stage 5, which is hip extension. With the hands at the knees, it's time to re-engage those hips, extending them forward by squeezing the glutes until you've returned to a standing position. I believe the key to deadlifts is this joint timing. Get your joint movement timings right and the rest will follow. So to repeat it again at speed, we have our setup, hip bend, knee extension, hip extension, hip, knee, hip.
Now, obviously, this is quite a broken down way of teaching and implementing a deadlift. And over time, you'd be looking at breaking down those stages into just one fluid movement. So when you're initially starting your deadlift, it can be really useful to have those 5 stages very clearly in your mind. So you build that mind to muscle connection of knowing where I'm going next and what I'm currently doing. Then over time, you want to imagine you're just smoothing that out. It becomes like a flowing river. So your deadlift is just one smooth movement. The keen-eyed among you may have also noticed that there are no weights currently in that kind of exercise, that initial exercise. And that's just because I like to make sure that my clients are biomechanically operating in the way that is functional for the deadlift before we start adding weight into the mixture, because weight adds another variable that could potentially lead to injury. So again, it's up to you. If you like to use weight, then you can start exploring it, but I would wait until you've got your technique down before implementing that phase. Now, I brought up weight, that means we should probably talk about it.
How do we do deadlifts with weights? The setup for your deadlift will remain the same. Your technique throughout the entirety of your deadlift should be exactly the same as if there were no weights present. If you find that the added weight is compromising your technique, then you need to drop those weights down or remove the weights altogether and go back to basics. The first port of call when it comes to weight training and deadlifts is to start with dumbbells. Keep the dumbbells at your sides, nice and close to your hips. You can also do this with a trap or hex bar. This is slightly easier than using a barbell and should certainly be the next step once you've got your technique down. Once you're ready to move on, we can progress to the barbell. Now, whenever using a barbell, it's essential to remember that most barbells at the gym are pre-weighted, so factor this into any calculations you're making about your weights. When deadlifting with a barbell, we have 3 grip options to choose from. You've got your overhand grip, your underhand grip, or a mixed grip, which is a combination of the two. You just find whatever works best for you and apply that to that technique, and this might change depending day to day, session to session. It is essential that you keep the barbell as close to your body as possible during the lift, tracking it up and down your legs. This is why we practice when not using weight, with our hands tracking up and down the front of our legs. Lat engagement is a key part of the deadlift, and it's the lats and the triceps that are responsible for keeping this bar pinned to your legs. The further out and away from your body the bar moves, the more likely you are to do your body a mischief. There is one more deadlift movement that I'd like to cover today, and that is the Romanian deadlift, or RDL. Now, I used to be really confused by Romanian deadlifts. However, what's really helped me is just to think of it as being the first and the last stage of the deadlift movement we're already practicing. The aim of an RDL is to work the muscles of the posterior or back of the legs with weight. So you're stretching these muscles and contracting them with weight. It's as simple as a hip bend and then a hip extension. The straighter your legs are, the more strain you're going to be putting through those stretched muscles, as the muscles are longer when straightened. Be careful with your weight choices on your RDLs, and remember it's always better to start with a lighter weight and work yourself up to those heavier weights. Otherwise you risk ending up on the floor as a puddle.
And that's it. That completes our brief exploration into the world of deadlifting. There are loads of different exercises and techniques you can use to improve your range of movement, improve your strength around your deadlift, so you can build your overall deadlift technique. And if you want those exercises, then you should probably hire me as your trainer. Like, I'm really cheap. Please. Now, squats are quite a complex deadlift. It's not squats we're doing deadlifts. And if you have enjoyed this video, then please do like and share it with anybody you think it would be useful for. And as always, if you have any questions, drop me a message anytime. I'm always more than happy to help. See you on the next one.